a couple of things, and I've had actually quite a good day. I'll try to stay quite chipper. So,
Okay. Welcome. I'll call to order the committee of the whole for Thursday, March 6, 2025. Is there any late additions or deletions?
Through the mayor, not a late addition, but just to clarify that there will be public questions allowed as well.
Okay. Okay, will somebody please move that the March 6, 2025 committee of the whole meeting agenda be adopted? Councillor McNary, Councillor Plan, all in favor? Carried. And will somebody please move that the February 27th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as presented? Councillor Plan, Councillor McNary, all in favor? Councillor Weave sends her regrets tonight. Is there any business arising from the minutes? No. Okay. Reports and presentations of staff, 2025 budget discussion.
thank you, Alison. That's fine. Thank you. Through the year. So, Tony has been working frantically with a input, a limited input as well, for what she's bringing back here to present to council. We understand that the last time that Joni wanted to bring this back, we're trying to do something slightly different this time by getting all of the information in front of council, giving you guys the opportunity to go away and look into it, and then coming back here. What Joni's going to do tonight is Joni's going to run through a presentation and go into a little bit more of the numbers and what they mean, what the options look like, and what those options look like to council, so that she can provide a bit of an explanation. The first PowerPoint presentation and the first bundle of questions was really designed to give council all of the information, and it's a lot of information. It's a huge amount of information. It's very difficult for staff to give council the information beforehand, and then the questions away and respond, and then come into council meetings. So we're trying to give council as much information as we can, and then open it up to conversations. This is how budget meetings can run really well, and we're hoping to kind of continue down the line and getting this budget meeting really moving ahead with it. So.
All right, so just a quick recap of where we were from our last meeting last week to balance our budget over the next 5 years, so the 5-year planning period, and to fund our asset replacement needs over the next 20 years. The draft budget presented to council on February 27th included a 13.3% increase in property taxes, 13.3% increase in garbage fees, a 9.5% increase in water fees, and a 7.1% increase in sewer fees. Putting that into perspective, the draft budget as it was presented would mean that a representative home, which is an average valued home within the district, valued at just over $400,000 in 2025, would pay an additional $175 in property tax, $34 in garbage, $61 in water, $45 in sewer, for a total annual increase of 11.2%, or $313 over the amounts they paid in 2024. Works out to about $26 a month, or about 86 cents a day. So the draft financial plan, as was presented last week, the budget is balanced over the 5-year period, and the increases in future years, excluding this year, so 26 to 29, were 10.7% for property tax and garbage, 9.5% for water, and 7.1% for sewer. So staff bring forward recommendations to council. And we're just giving council all of the information. It's council's decision what to do with that information. There are options that council can consider to reduce the impact to the taxpayers. I've outlined a few of the options here. I'm sorry, it's a little hard for the public to read that. I didn't realize it was quite that bad, but I will have copies online and you can come in and get them. So a few of the options are outlined here. For context, staff used the actual CPI rate for BC in 2024 of 2.6%. So again, as I mentioned at the last meeting, not increasing fees by at least the amount of inflation is actually reducing the fees. So to reduce the property taxes to 2.6%, which staff are neither recommending nor endorsing, but to reduce the property tax increase to 2.6%, council could consider using the remaining COVID relief funding to offset wages for building and development. Using this just over $160,000 would reduce the tax increase needed by 5.45% to 7.85%, so just under 8%. Further reducing the district transfers to general reserves by just under 155,000 would reduce the tax increase needed by an additional 5.25% to the CPI rate of 2.6. So somewhere between what I just outlined there and the 13.3% is where council needs to fall. Similarly, in garbage, water, and sewer, the transfers to reserves could be reduced to reduce the rate down to the 2.6% across the board. Again, this is neither recommended nor endorsed by staff. These are only a few of the options. There's other options that can be considered, including borrowing to reduce the amount we need to set aside in our reserve funds for asset replacement. Also, these amounts, you can change these amounts to coincide with whatever percentage increase council determines. So we could use the remaining COVID funding and still put reduce our transfers to reserves by 75,000 instead of 155. So it would be about a 5% increase then. So there's many different options that council can consider. Going back to the 2.6%, assuming that was set across the board, a representative home in Lillooet would see an increase of $54 for tax and garbage. Oh, sorry, a $54 increase for all four. So tax, garbage, water, and sewer. 2.6% works out to just under $4.50 a month, or about 15 cents a day. So again, somewhere between that and the $313 is where council needs to fall this year. And obviously you can't read that very well, but this would be the 5-year financial plan with those changes discussed incorporated. It changes the amounts that we're transferring to reserves, changes the property tax revenue, the utility fee revenue, and the grants and government transfers, because that would be the COVID relief funding. So having said all that, as we tell council each year, there are consequences for reducing the increases from that recommended of staff. If you recall, last year, staff recommended an increase of 10.7% for taxes, and council settled on an increase of 8%. This meant that to balance the budget over this 5-year planning period and fund our asset replacement needs, the recommended tax increase this year increased to that 13.3%. Should council decide to reduce everything to 2.6% for 2025, which again is the amount of CPI, Next year's increases would be really significant. 22.3% for property taxes and garbage, 16.8% for water, 11.7% for sewer. So you can see how the years compound themselves. Reducing this year means the future years make up, unless it's reducing something that's long-term. So if council chooses to long-term reduce the transfers that we're putting into reserves, then that means our tax increases could reduce a bit. But of course, we're not putting aside the funds that our asset replacement strategy says that we need over the next 20 years. So there's many options to choose from, but each option comes with its own consequences. 13.3% comes with a consequence of we might be burned at the stake. But 2.6% comes with a consequence of huge increases in future years. So we provided staff so far with details regarding the projects this year as well. But just to remind council that the focus needs to be on the operating budget, which is what we're looking at here, the property tax and utility increases. The projects are all funded through the district's accumulated surplus. So our reserve funds, our appropriated surplus, or from external funding like grants. So removing a project from the list of projects to do does not affect the tax or utility amounts that we need. So just to be clear there. And that's all I have for tonight. Short and sweet, maybe not so sweet, but with that, happy to take any questions from council before turning it back to you for discussion. We are happy to answer any questions on the projects as well, but again, our focus should be on the operating budget. If there's something from the project list that's an absolute heck no, that's great. But again, it's not going to make an impact on the tax and utility increases that council needs to decide on.
Okay, thank you. Big report, lots of work. And this is all of it, right? This is all, there's no new information coming like at any future meetings or anything like this. This is all our information and we're gonna work from here, right?
Correct, except
If we
If-
change anything,
yes.
then you will bring that
Yes.
back and there'll be new budget,
yes,
draft budget.
so there would be
So
new
there would
information.
be that. Okay,
Yes.
all right. So, Councilor McNary, you want to start off the,
Yeah, last year's budget, we settled it at 8% or 8.5, I can't remember.
8%.
8%. Anyways, we had a surplus there in the wages and stuff like that. Do we have that same surplus this year?
No, and sorry, through the mayor, we didn't actually have a surplus in the general fund last year. We were funding some of our deficit from our accumulated surplus to smooth out the tax increase over the years rather than a huge 20%, and I'm making up this number, 20% jump in the first year down to 15 and then 10 to smooth it out and balance over the 5-year period. We were using some of our previous profits
Yeah.
to cover that.
Did we have any profits last year?
Last year, no, we're using some of our surplus.
so when I'm looking at this, I've got the 2024 adopted budget. Was supposed to be around. Well, I see, didn't we have about a 1.4 surplus from last year?
Okay, first, where are you looking?
Okay, no, I think it was just under the other expenditure. Like I always feel like in our reserves, we're always putting money into our reserves. Um. From leftover money that was not spent.
Quite often, if the district has a surplus over the year, we have a reserve and surplus policy, which
Right.
outlines what gets transferred into which funds.
Right.
Yes.
So like, okay, I'm on page 30 of this right here. And I'm looking at the reserves. And we were going to transfer 2024 adopted budget. So second column down, under expenses, the last item was transferred to reserves was 1.5 million, 51,463. But the 2024 actual was 2,068,000.
Yes. We got grant funding for some projects that we didn't, budget for grant funding. So we were able to recoup some of the budget from there. And as almost every year, we're not fully staffed. So yes, we did put more into reserves than we anticipated. We also got about 200,000, about 100 and some thousand extra in interest earnings. So,
Okay,
yes,
so take that $500,000 and we say if we cut the budget back, we're not doing 13.3%, say we're doing 8%, whatever that, I'm just throwing out numbers here, 8%. But that'll accumulate next year because we'll have to pay more. Why? Because we've got $500,000 into our reserves. Why do we have to pay more? Why can't we use that? And I get the whole grant thing, because this is, comes to the table every time. We can't count on the grants. I recognize that because we don't know what grants first are going to be available, if we're going to apply for them, and if we're going to get them. So therefore, they cannot be on the budget as proposed because we don't know. However, at the end of every year, we do get grants during the year, and we do add them to the budget, and we do end up with transfers to the reserves because we have grants. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can bring it down without adding the bulk of it to next year by using the reserves that we didn't spend last year.
so yes. We can't use reserves, for operating costs. The reserves are set aside in a bylaw, that says what they're allowed to be used for. Having said that, we do have the stabilization reserve, which although it's called a reserve, it's not a reserve set by bylaw.
Right.
And it can be used for operating.
And we can reduce the amount that we're putting into reserves, so can we not? We can
Absolutely.
reduce the amount that we're putting into reserves and using the offset that we do get every single year for grants and put that into reserves, so it would balance it.
Potentially.
Potentially, okay. Let me just circulate that. I'll go to somebody else's questions.
That was my big question. Like, what are we doing with that money? Like, there's a $500,000 here. And, and then our forecast is to drive it up again. Or on our other year budget and whatnot. I don't understand that.
I know, it's a tough one. The other issue I have is that, over the last, I'll say decade, having the asset management plan was a big, huge thing, was always, let's, do our asset managements, because if we have that, then we can have shelf-ready projects, and then we can, get grant funding because we got asset management. All I've seen from asset management right now is that it is driving our tax rate up. And the reason it's driving our tax rate up is prior to this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, prior to this, asset management, that wasn't accounted in our financials. So when the rate of increase was 2.6% and we were putting in 2.6%, then it was going at the normal rate or whatever. But when we put the asset management in there, and now we've got $90 million that we are trying to allocate funds for and trying to save up so we can repair all these asset managements, it's driving our tax rate up. And somewhere in there, there's got to be a way that maybe we need to prolong the longevity of our asset management plan, or because other communities, I cannot see them, if we're raising 13% or say even an average of 10%, like, people aren't gonna be able to survive. There is, you know, what we are talking about going up, but that doesn't include the tax school rate of going up, the policing rate, the SLRD rate. Those rates are all, you know, cumulative as well. So I have to wonder if there's anything we can do with the whole asset management piece.
Yes. Council can not do it. Or council can scale back what we're doing. Again, like I was saying before, those are absolute options for council. They have consequences. So my job is to make council aware that it's an option and these are the consequences. And if that's what council decides to do, then that's what we do.
I just think it's really hard because prior to the asset management, nobody's ever put away anything for asset management. And now here we are trying to do all this asset management with the taxpayers that we have, which is, I don't know, about 1,450 is the parcel tax, somewhere give or take. in there.
1529 or something, I'm not positive.
Whatever. But it's hard to do it on such a limited tax parcel base. And trying to figure out how those 1,500 people are gonna pay for $90 million. It just seems ludicrous and unfair. So for me, I'd rather scale that back a bit. I don't wanna cut it out, but I do wanna scale it back. That's an option.
And so just in response for that. Yes, previously, 2.6 and we were doing fine and, but that's what got us into this position today. That's why we don't have these funds set aside in our reserves. Not that we don't have funds set aside. But take our water reserve and sewer reserve, I believe they're both around 1.5 million. If the main street water and sewer was to, how far would 1.5 million go?
No thought of it.
Not far enough, for sure. For sure.
So,
But then we'd have to take a loan and we'd have to move forward
Yeah.
like that. Like, I get that. And, we do have, what is our reserve total?
just under $10 million.
$10 million in total of all. All of ours?
Too many pages.
The other, the other discussion we were having is, although $9 million sounds fantastic, if we take it from one pile and put it into another pile, I'll let Joni explain this in more detail. we still need to pay that back plus interest to ourselves. It's all required to do that.
But not if we reduce our amount that we're, like our percentage that we are putting into it, then we don't have to pay it back.
But we do a one-time transfer, we do.
Pardon me?
If we do a one-time transfer, so if we try to make the other, if we wanted to take, if we've got 1.2 million just now in water, and
Right,
we said we wanted to take $3 million from one pot and put it into the water,
right,
we still need to pay that back.
Yes, yeah,
Still
if
need-
something were to happen. Right,
I'd rather borrow from ourselves than somebody else, so.
right, exactly.
Remember that.
Yeah, just under $10 million.
Just under $10 million.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so if we wanted to reduce our, the amount on an ongoing basis, what we're putting in for our asset management, like I said, I just feel that the asset management is what's really killing us right now, and like as a taxpayer. So we gotta remember that these guys are on the looking after, the finances and presenting all these figures, but it's up to us to figure out how these taxpayers are gonna pay for all this. And 90 million is a lot, so go ahead.
Our assets managed is worth $90 million on that.
We're
Is there
actually
no
100.
depreciation? What's that?
We have, because when we did the asset management plan, we have $99 million in assets. So we've got 10 million in the bank, that leaves us with about $90 million that we've gotta save up for. Great.
Is there not a depreciation on any of those assets?
So sorry, through the mayor, the 99 million is the replacement value.
Well, I don't agree with that. Because if you go through insurance, you can't get a replacement value. If your house is built in 91 and you're building another house today, that house in 91, the insurance gives you this much money for it, like say $50,000, and it costs you $400,000 to build another house because this house got burnt up or whatever. It's the way I see it, that's not the way it works. Like, I think we have to evaluate what we have.
And what you're sort of talking is how it appears in our financial statements. Yes, we have depreciation. It cost us $50,000. After 10 years, it's only worth $10,000. That's our financial statements. But like with the house example, it cost you $50,000 when you built it. But today it costs $400,000 to build. Well, the replacement value is 400,000, not 50.
And so we're going on replacement value.
Correct. If we had to build a new water treatment plant that was just over $10 million, probably today I'm guessing $15 million. Because things cost more now. So in that 99 million, it would be counted as 15, not 10. Because that's what it would cost us today to replace it.
I don't like that. Oh, personally, you know.
Oh, wait.
What's that? Well, I don't, it's not the way everything else works. In reality. Taxpayers are paying for it.
It's really weird. I agree. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes the idea of it. Nobody likes the concept of it either. But in order for us to go after grant applications, in order for us to go after partnership agreements, in order for us to be able to appropriately manage when the fire hall needs replaced or when we need to upgrade the water treatment plant or when we need to bring in a new pump, for example, or when all of these things need to be given some sort of life expectancy so that we can come up with it. Because otherwise, we're just kind of meandering through the forest, hoping to find something. But the idea of an asset management plan is always overly arduous, and it's always really, it's always overly inflated. There's no way to look at it, but it's a pretty precise estimate of how much you would need in case of something, the worst case scenarios. And unfortunately, in the municipality, we've got to try and kind of steer it through it. Now, do we expect to be able to have $99 million in the bank in the next couple of years and be, I don't think anyone really truly expects that to happen. But what we need to be trying to do is use that asset management plan as a tool. And it takes into consideration everything. It's the roads, it's the asphalt, it's the pipes, it's the hydrants, it's the fire department, it's all of their pumps, it's all of their equipment. It takes up all of that stuff. Some things do have a life expectancy. Some things, the life expectancy is quite a bit more. I'm sure if we did an asset management plan on when we should replace our municipal hall, for example, which is an asset, well, I would like to see it there in another 100 years. Needs some small work to it, but an asset management plan would say we probably need a whole new hall. We're not saying that this, so we need to be able to kind of scale it back and see what we can do and what we can't do. But it's council's job to then steer us through it and say, I think that it's a bit much. Everyone that comes up with an asset management plan is a bit much. It's new to this council. You've only had it for a year, 2 years, a year, 3 years. So it's new to this council. And what it is it's a guiding document that gives council and it gives the community and it gives financial, if we were going to go through MFA, they would ask to see an asset management plan, potentially some of the other risks that we're looking at. Because it means that we know what the risks are for our community. That's what it is. It's a plan. It's a very detailed plan. In some communities, in larger communities, they have an asset management officer and an asset management person that spends the full day going around and figuring out the life expectancy on a bench and when that bench is going to have to be replaced by 2045. It's a full-time job in some municipalities. It's a lot. And I agree it's a bit much. And I think if we focus on the asset management plan tonight, we're going to get lost in the weeds. And we all know that the asset management plan has steered us into a heavy taxation. And we see that. We acknowledge it from the staff point of view, but it was adopted and that's where we're kind of getting guided from a little bit. Joni's got a couple of options for us tonight to look at. I don't want you to steer away too much, but Joni's got a couple of options tonight. The first one is to use the additional COVID funding, which takes in an extra $160,000. So $160,000 of additional COVID funding that would drop the interest rate from 13.3 down to 7.8 or 7.85. So that's the first thing that Joni's presenting tonight to kind of bring into consideration. The next thing I think we need to look at over and above that is happy with that rate? Are we not happy with that rate? Do you want to reduce that rate? We're not going to go 2.6. That's it. We can't do that. That's us really starting to kind of close the books on a lot of stuff. We would definitely say Joni's brought this forward for you to look at tonight, which is great. Over and above it, below it. If you want it below it, we should start looking at it. There is an effect for next year because this is a one-time funding. We're using that COVID funding off. So we won't have that 160 grand to go forward with next year. So we need to be prepared for either reducing other things next year again, or looking at other options again. So we either reduce the services or we see what else we're trying to do with them. Do we think we're going to go to 19.3 or 23.3 next year? I don't think council would be, well, and if we're not going to do 13.3 this year, it's going to be very difficult to have that discussion with 19.9 next year. But we do need to look at what we're doing with the asset management plan. A lot of the stuff that we're working on just now would probably give staff and Joni and I a little bit more comfort on where our infrastructure needs are. So if we do some of our master plans can look at our infrastructure and say, you might get an additional 20 years out of that street. You might get another 5 years out of that street. You might get an extra couple of years out of this. And that's where we make assessments. If we make assessments all day, every day on what projects to do based on the best information that we have, So a lot of those master plans actually help us kind of look at things and say, rather than doing filters this year for the water treatment plant, it could probably do another couple of years, okay. But then we need to start putting some hard lines in things. You know, and those hard lines and things will be, but we need to be there for that. And that's why we're looking at blending in things like DCC projects that are very, very specific to other things. They won't offset that, but they will allow us to identify some very specific projects moving forward. So there's a lot in that I think we should concentrate first and foremost on the right here, right now, with a lens to what we're moving on to. The asset management plans is going to be a big, big conversation.
Before we leave the asset management plan though, is there a rate of how do you define how much of or do you, the 13 point whatever %, how much of that is asset management? 4% of asset management.
Although, if we just keep going and I'll find it, I know it's in
Okay.
here, I just can't recall exactly where.
Okay, okay.
This COVID plan here, the money we got from the COVID, how long did that last? Are they gonna jerk that away from us at once? I'm worried about it.
It was a one-time, after COVID ended, we got a one-time grant amount.
Yeah.
And that's slowly been going down, and I think that there was extensions, like, I think we had to use it by, I don't know, next year or something, but they've kind of extended that. Some.
With the COVID funding, there wasn't a hard deadline to use it. They said they expected most municipalities to use it within 3 or 4 years, but there wasn't a hard deadline. I wouldn't expect that they were going to take it back. However, I wouldn't suggest that we just keep sitting on it either.
And I have to say, like, at the SLRD table, I think we're using it for our COVID relief, and I think there's gonna be about like $20,000 left in our COVID relief fund. We've just been kind of chipping out of the way to try it, so there is that.
I don't trust the government, I think we should get rid of it.
Well, we are the
You are the
government.
The other government that gave it to us.
I don't trust them either. No, okay.
Just, still talking about the COVID grant here. So we had used it before in the past, like I think, the planning position was made with that money. So the 160, you're saying that we still have, we're not needing that to continue with that position, or is that position now been rolled into?
So what I'm suggesting in the options is to continue using it for the position. But this would be the final year that we had that funding left.
So it's not already rolled into salaries and wages on the 2025 budget?
It's not the use of the COVID funds is not in what you have received so
Right.
far. It's an option for council to consider. Because we've been slowly reducing how much of that position was covered by this funding. So that once we ran out of funding, the tax increase wasn't as substantial. But we can just use it all now if that's what council would like to do.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not picking on that position. That's the only thing that I could remember that we used COVID money for.
There's actually 2 positions that we've been using it for, which is building inspection and planning. And that was with the permission of the province. We have used it as well in the past to offset some of the reduced revenue at the rec center and the campgrounds. And we used it as well for a bunch of IT upgrades in the first year, I believe it was.
I remember there was a whole bunch of things,
Yes.
but that was the only thing.
Yes, but the only thing that we're still continuing to use it for has been those wages.
using this COVID 160,472 would wipe us out. That's all of it.
Correct. And sorry, back to your question about how much, of the taxes was going to asset replacement. So, and this is working with the 13.3%. Just under 800,000 goes to asset replacement. And,
What was that number?
just under 800,000. And then just under 3 million is just, operating. So a little less than a third goes to asset replacement.
I need a course.
Don't we all?
Just to, to figure out exactly. And that varies every year based on the tax that we tax.
Correct.
There's not a percentage though, so if could we reduce it by 2%,
Absolutely.
like on an ongoing basis?
Absolutely. That's where where I said reduce the transfers to reserves.
Yeah.
This is a transfer to reserves.
Okay.
We can reduce that. If it's a one-time or a short-term reduction, then in the future, it's gonna hit the taxpayers because we had less, now we need more. If it's a long-term thing, then depending on how long-term it is, doesn't affect the taxpayers because we just keep it less.
And then any grant fundings we had in the year, so take last year, we had 500,000, we could take that surplus and put it back into the reserves.
It just wouldn't be
Yeah.
taken out of the reserves.
So for me, I would like to, well, let's go up, look at the rest of the questions. Does anybody have any questions on the preliminary tax increase with the COVID funding or the general reserves?
I think we should use that,
Which one? Or do you think
the
both?
COVID reserve.
Or you think we should use the COVID reserve?
Yep.
I think we should, it's part and parcel. I think we should use part of the COVID reserve. I think we should also reduce our transfer to general reserves.
The general reserves is that our asset management
That's part of it, yeah.
part of it?
And then when we do apply for grants, because we can't count on grants, and then when we do apply for grants, we can replenish those for reserves. We can put money into our reserves. From the money that is left over. I'd like to keep a little bit of our COVID relief fund,
I'd like to use it all.
would you? Okay. Yes,
I agree with Councillor McNary. I think the COVID relief funds should be used this year in case it is a lose it or use it scenario there. I am totally against going to 2.6. That's. I'm glad it's on the table, but it shouldn't be on the table.
well, that's the. Great.
Yeah.
Separate funds.
But yeah, the COVID just as sort of general people who have been like when you look at Sturb and all of these other things and businesses suddenly have to pay back COVID funding and the way things are going, who knows what will that's going to be coming back to the people there. So
Okay.
Yeah, you already pulled our.
You two are the majority, so. Want to use a COVID? I'm good with that.
That's one little discussion.
Okay,
There's more.
I'll just erase my little notation in here. Okay, so
13.3 is on the table.
absolutely, agree, I will agree, okay.
So if I could, through the mayor, so using the COVID funding would mean and I have to try and read really small here. So now our property tax increase is 7.85%. Our garbage is still 13.3. Our water is still 9.5. And our sewer is still 7.1.
Okay, well,
Do we have any control?
So garbage, water and sewer, to reduce those amounts is by reducing transfers to reserves.
What do we got in reserves on them now?
So altogether, we've got just under $10 million in reserves.
Yeah, is that not designated for, like, there's some for water, there's some for
Yeah.
sewer and whatnot?
Yes, there's about,
The reserves are on, sorry, Joni.
That's right.
I interrupt.
Yeah, we need to do this.
43.
This one or these?
So water, 1.5 million, sewer 1.6. The rest is general. But part of that is cemetery, which is 55,000. There's recreation, which is about 750,000. Land sale, which really we can't really use unless we're buying land, don't even look at that. General capital can be used for pretty much anything capital, except for water and sewer. Roads can be used for, surprise, roads. Vehicles and equipment, again, I think you can figure that out. Cemetery replacement. Gas tax is fairly broad in what it can be used for, but there are some conditions. Most of our projects would qualify to use gas tax funding for. Recreation capital. And then the growing communities. So we are suggesting that that be used for, and I'm sorry, I would have to look, for one of the water, I believe. Yeah, the water distribution system, so, because that one does have a time limit, I can read it, 3 to 4 years. And that was that just about 1.3 million that we received.
So we're gonna spend that in the next 3 years?
Yes. Don't quote me on the years, but there was a timeframe that they were recommending for it, yes. But we have suggested that we use it for the water,
Water treatment, oh, yeah, okay.
Water distribution.
Yeah. So we got a couple, 3 years on that, right?
Okay, like to talk about the garbage. So it's got a 13.3%. So on page 56 is our garbage collection. And under 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, we have a surplus on each year. And 2024, we had an actual of 100,000, and we are predicting a 2025 draft budget prediction of a surplus of 142,000. So I feel like we should be able to reduce that.
So through the mayor, you may recall that I had this same discussion with Councillor De Bruin last year. This surplus in the garbage is helping offset deficits in some other departments. Yes, we can reduce it by reducing our transfers to reserves. But not to think that we're,
Pocket money.
correct. Thank you.
I'd still like to reduce it. Because I think 13.3% on anything is just too much. And it used to be a 2%. Wasn't it by a bylaw, actually, that it was, I thought water sewer was 9% by bylaw and garbage was 2% by bylaw, always.
So the water and sewer, and I believe it was back in 2013, there was a 10-year schedule done to the bylaw, so it outlined the rates for 10 years. I believe they were, I want to say 9% increase each year.
Yeah.
The garbage didn't have any increase for a number of years, and I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly the year that we brought it forward. It was just static for a number of years. When that 10-year
Term.
plan ran out, actually shortly before that, because we had COVID, it was changed. The bylaw now reads that they will all be increased by inflation. So that's the minimum. And then any additional increase that council determines through the financial plan process.
How much has our garbage gone up since this new outfit pulled in? Like, does it cost us more? Well, the new outfit up there at the garbage dump.
Oh, that's the SLRD piece of it.
Yeah, but they must be
And,
charging us more for it now.
It will go up and it's going up this year too. So like I said, these taxes that we're talking about, the garbage and water, the sewer and our overall tax is one entity of our tax portion. And then there's the SLRD that will be on top of it. The policing, which will be on top of it, the school tax will be on top of all their increases will also be added to whatever. So when we say that the average for a $400,000 home is gonna go up 340,000 or whatever it was, does not include the other increases that are coming. They're all coming with that too.
313.
And so I don't know exactly what the garbage is going up for everybody this year. We're in the middle of financials with the SLRD as well. And CAO and myself have a meeting on Monday to go over the actual tax increase for Lillooet. That'll be additional.
My problem is that like the 13.3% is gonna add a bunch more on for next year and whatnot. Like, we got 4 years of something that nobody knows what's gonna happen either.
Well, you're never gonna know what happens.
No, but I mean, it's really, really bad happening that this time, I think, but you know, do we consider that? Like, to try to keep people in town? Is there gonna be any jobs in town? Are people gonna be able to afford what we need to afford? Is what we're doing. Like,
Exactly.
We have to make a plan for town for sure.
I would rather see the garbage be in sync with whatever our tax rate is. So if we're gonna rate it now 7.85, see our garbage be in line with our tax. I think that's a fair equation. It's a guideline. It's not 13, it's not 2, but it is that middle ground. that will still create a surplus for us. And personally, for me, the water, I think is a lot, the sewer is a lot, but I also have learned over the last decade how much those two infrastructure assets cost us. So I'm willing to keep that one, even though I think that
Other necessities.
they're necessities, we can't do without them, and it's gonna have to come from somewhere, and we can't do without them. And I know how much goes wrong with them and, so I'm willing to, but the garbage, I think it's,
Hey, the garbage, what does it cost, through the household? Where is that? $34 at 7 Like. Oh,
increase.
yeah, an increase. What is that?
Well, like I said, it's a cumulative effect, right?
Yeah. But what is it?
So if we
Does
raise-
anybody know?
I think I paid $300 or something this year.
For garbage?
Garbage is 200, or last year was $252 for the average single family house. I shouldn't even say the average, for a single family dwelling was $252.
Those are set rates, they don't fluctuate on the house worth or the assessment value, they are just parcel taxes, basically. Well, they're not a parcel tax.
They're a set rate,
They're a set rate.
depending on the use of the property, like we have a different rate for a barber shop than we do for a house.
Or an empty lot.
It's a question. Yeah,
Or, well, yeah, I know. Okay. So so what was the garbage rate? The garbage rate was 252, you said?
last year, yes.
And what was the rest?
97.
What was the water and the sewer? Do you have them right there?
Yeah. Water was 627 and sewer was the same.
So, 12, 13,
That's 627, it's cheap.
so $1,500 for your services, for those three services per household, plus your taxes. They're not,
What'd you say?
well, 1,500, this bill goes out, before, this is for your services, right?
Yeah.
So that's a different bill, it's not on your tax bill from us. The tax bill is your 7.8, and it includes your school and your SORD, and your policing and whatever else is on there. Hospital, right?
I've got my old one here, I shouldn't have sent that.
BC assessment, MFA, school,
Yeah.
police, SLRD, and the T and our GNRD, but the hospital.
Yeah. So again,
What's the number for the
Then the
TNRD?
utility bill is that.
What's the number for the TNRD? Like, what did we contribute from the TNRD?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Oh,
Sorry.
I would like to know that number, yeah. No, you didn't.
just go home and look at your taxes.
Hey,
Go home and look at your taxes.
I don't know what. I was like about some stuff, so.
Okay, but anyway. Just got hurt. Okay,
Well, I've got mine from 2022. So which one do you want?
10.
It's close enough.
Okay, it doesn't say TNR.
It says hospital something.
Oh, hospital levy?
Yeah.
Okay, for me, for 2022, I paid $174.
What would be the total of that from the whole town? Approximately.
$174 times 1,500.
Yeah.
Can't we do that?
No.
No. It's not commercial.
It's kind of different from the tax.
You're right.
Okay,
It's okay to detour.
Last year to the hospital district, the district paid just under 200,000.
All right. Are you? I want to know how you guys feel about taking the garbage fee and doing it with where we've got to with the tax reduction to 7.85%.
Where is it? Where?
Before, generally, it goes hand in hand, I guess.
It doesn't have to, it can be a completely different
For sure,
percentage, that's
for sure.
entirely up to council. It's, when we're calculating it, it's a little easier to use the same across the board, but.
Right. So that's my question to my counselors.
So what do you wanna take it down to, 7%?
To 7.85, so we've reduced our tax because we're using the COVID relief funding,
Yeah,
to reduce that. We do have a surplus every year, so we're projecting $142 surplus from the garbage fee. I'm wanting to reduce it from the 13.3% increase to match the 7.85 increase. So we'll still have a surplus, but it won't be 142, it'll likely be 100.
what if we're gonna get,
Okay, sorry, Council Plan, go ahead.
Well, I'm totally visual. So if we were going to these, what would it bring it down to be for the per average for home now?
For which?
If we
For
were,
all of them?
Yeah,
garbage would go down?
no, we're just looking at the garbage fee.
well, I know, but I still want to know what. the
Oh, okay.
property fee-
Including the COVID money,
That's using the COVID money, yeah, doing the 7.85.
so 7.85. 7.85, 9.46, 7.27,
Sorry,
holding the water and the sewer as is.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's like, this is 1 return.
thank you all for coming. I think that's the other thing, but
There's no karaoke on tonight, you know?
What is tonight? I think it is karaoke, I think. We need a fourth member of the band.
I would never join in your boy band, it's never happened.
not even on a dare.
No,
Okay,
Okay, all right,
uh,
order.
so taxes, 7.85, just under $1,400. Garbage, 7.85 would be $272. Leaving. What, sorry? What do you-
So we're looking at the increase for the average home. So currently at like 13.3 for garbage, we're looking at an increase per home of about $34.
So if we were to reduce that to 7.85.
I thought that's what I was telling you guys, and then I heard, what?
What?
Don't get. It's giving us the total for now.
So going from just under 2,800 in 2024 to just over 3,000 in 2025, so it's about $120 less of an increase in total. Tax, garbage, water, and sewer.
$120 total for the year?
Nope,
Oh.
Sorry, through the mayor, just for clarification. Councillor Flanagan, are you asking what the increase or the reduction would be on the 13.3% to the 7.6%? Just not sure.
So instead of $34 per home, how much is it gonna cost at 7.58 or 7.85 per home?
okay.
So Josie, yep,
Sorry, I hate not having to keep it.
it's not in the budget.
Okay, so instead of 175 for tax, just under 101.
Okay.
Instead of $34 for garbage, just under 20. And then, of course, water and sewer would stay the same. So instead of $313, it's about $225.
$100.
John, can you just state, Mr. Reed, that you really are appreciated?
I could have had all this ready if anybody had asked ahead of time.
I
We
really
could have,
didn't think of it until now.
We didn't have this till today. Look at
Yes, we did.
this one?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. No, it was just on my desk.
Yeah, no, it was emailed this morning, but in my defense, the work all day.
It's okay.
It was part of the presentation last week as well, that same slide.
If you go to the videos.
Anyway, so
Anyway, I think this group is a group that needs to have it all a couple of weeks before. And we just go through it and then we come here and then we just your little face off.
but
I know. Okay, so we're down to 225. We will look at the asset management rates over the next little while, correct? This will not cause, because we're using the COVID relief fund, it will not cause next year's to jump up to 23 or anything like that, because, right?
well, using the COVID relief fund is a one-time money that we have. So next year, we don't have 160,000.
Right. Okay.
But if we work on our asset management plan,
So an option next year could potentially be to offset that 160 by a reduced transfer to reserves. That could be an option. But again, staff is going to come to council next year and you're gonna look at me with horror again, because I'm gonna come to you with a balanced budget over 5 years, funding our asset replacement, and you're gonna be looking at 20-something% next year. Because my job is to give you all of the information. Your job is to decide what to do with that.
Right. So how do we reduce? Because like I go back to this and I know going down a rabbit hole with this.
We get rid of stuff.
Um.
If we don't have to
Or
replace
can
something.
we prolong some things that, you know, because we don't know that just because we have a 50-year lifespan on a pipe doesn't mean it doesn't last 60, right?
Correct.
It doesn't mean that it doesn't last 40.
Correct.
Right? So, and you know, going back to the government, the provincial government, I think what the plan is for asset management is to, we go to the government and we say, okay, we want to redo Fraser View Road. And they say, oh, okay, do you have an asset management plan? Because their whole idea is they don't want to give us any money in the future. They might want to help us one time, but they want to know that they will never have to help us do that again because we're on a plan to do it ourselves. Is that not the whole
That's
provincial?
putting it very bluntly.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they want us to do it ourselves, and that's, if we budget for it, then they'll help us a one-time thing, and they're not gonna help us again, because they're running out of money too. That's the way I look at it. I do want to scale it back, but that's another conversation, so. Are we sitting tonight?
So, can I assume that we have a consensus? And this is not set in stone. This still goes to council. You still get to listen to the public. This is not set in stone.
Okay.
Can I assume we have a consensus right now of 7.85 tax and garbage? 9.5 for water and 7.1 for sewer.
I don't think I want to assume anything yet.
Who wants to develop?
Okay. Well, I have to know what to bring back to
Bring
you.
that back.
So I want a
Bring
consensus
back.
from council of what you want me to bring back.
I do want to see what that looks like. And do you want anything else? Do you want to see, reduced water?
No, I would like to see, the water and the garbage and all that stay the same, but I would like to look at a couple different options on the 7.85 to like, 8.5, like we did last year and stuff like that. I'd like to have a look at those numbers and see what the difference are. Is our reserve going into our, like if we got a water pipe blowing up like you're talking about, stuff like that. Our asset management, until we can get our asset management figured out. And then we can. I'd like to go from there.
But we do,
Hey,
like, we do have reserves for
yeah.
when they do. And we, okay,
Then I'm trying to take away from what she's talking about, that 20% next year.
but then we have to reduce our.
Yeah, and if we find out what our asset management is. And we know those numbers. Then we can adjust for that. Right now, we don't know those.
Yeah, I wonder
And
if
I'm
we
just
ever
being-
should have done that. You know what I mean, really?
I think we
because-
need to, we need. to.
We do, but I mean, the taxpayers of today are gonna be paying for that forever, and it's, to me, it's unfair, but
It's just-
I know that we have to get there, but I still think that, it's too
I
much.
just hate-
People,
I just hate depleting something that we've had, that's planned, and we don't know the numbers.
you gotta remember, the 500,000 that we're taking from the COVID relief is also the $500,000
160.
or the
Yeah,
160 or whatever yeah. I mean, we had $500,000 as a surplus last year. As a surplus. But bring it back,
Bring what back?
Randy wanted to say, or Counselor McNary, do you want to see something higher?
I wanna see 8.5 myself personally.
Okay, for tax and garbage or?
Yeah. And then. That's what I would like to see.
I'm kind of thinking that's a little bit too high, but I don't want to be throwing lots of numbers at Joni because that's too much work for her to say, oh, he wants this, he wants this, he wants that, give us all the numbers back. I would prefer to just keep it at the, 7, asking Joni just to do the 785, because that was sort of the original sort of partial consensus of us all there. And we can sort of, not that the mental math is that amazing, but we can probably try and work out ourselves what closer to a meter or something would be.
I'm willing to concede a little bit to 8. If that's only point something.
Well, it's only point something.
Okay, a little bit at 8.
All right, so the two scenarios. Okay. Where do you want, oh, go ahead. Nope.
I was just going to suggest that perhaps council see if there's any questions from them.
I will, after, yeah.
The other thing that, and through the other thing I'm going to say, not assuming that everyone's running for council next year. Next year does present its challenges, it's an election year. It's not going to be a year down the line, there are changes in the world, there are changes in the global tariff world that we all live in as well, now that we're all seeing, there will be a federal election this year as well. There will be a lot of changes next year to kind of consider on. I think that what council are looking at just now is encouraging. It's good to see that we're not anywhere near the 2.6, we're not even at 5 level, which is really encouraging for staff. That really makes me feel really happy and very proud that we're not anywhere near that. I think the level of conversation is encouraging. I think it's a good level of conversation. Some of the small changes in here between 7.85 and 8 or 8.5 would probably be the difference of 20 or 30 bucks a year.
Not even.
The difference in these kind of numbers isn't a monumental shift. And maybe $20 a year isn't a lot for me and my family. It might be a lot for other people, and I appreciate that. Completely respect that. But maybe not worry too much on some of the kind of pennies and dollars. If there's a number that you're thinking of for an increase, then kind of stick to that. But I just want to remind council that next year will be a harder budget, and because of the election, because of the federal election, and because the global will have changed next year as well. But I think what you're doing this year is really encouraging. I also agree with council on the COVID relief. I wanted to intentionally stay out of that, just purely because it pays for wages and operating. Next year wages will go up, operating will be more expensive, and that 160 grand will get you less. But you arrived at that yourself, so I think that that's the right thing to do. But yeah, I agree with Joni. I think we should probably pass it over to the public and see what their thoughts are on it as well.
Any more?
And I'm certainly welcome to come back, or happy to come back to council for more questions.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, where's the public? Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Come on, you guys.
I do actually. First, I'd like a clarification from Joni before asking a question. Joni, on the MFA, if I remember correctly, you used to be able to set aside a sum of money, local government could set aside a sum of money, let's say $2 million. And then they could draw down on that as they needed, if needed. And I wondered if that was still there. It's like when you're building a house, you get a lump sum of money and then you draw it.
Oh, are you talking about the demand funds? I think perhaps.
Yeah,
And those are only when we actually have outstanding debentures with MFA.
Okay.
So right now, with the MFA, we have a money market and they call it a government focus, something or other bond. As our investments with the MFA, the money market is very liquid. I think it's like 3 days or something to get it out. And then the other one I think is a month. But that's all that we have, with the MFA.
Oh, I thought this was a separate program that they offered to local government.
I'm not aware of anything in current right now.
Yeah.
Um,
It could have been years ago when they changed it.
yeah, I'm not aware of anything, but if you, can shoot me some more information, I can
Yeah.
certainly look at it.
It's just something we have to remember. So the question is, and I often wonder this because I watched through the past council and now this council, is that the only discussions I've noticed on council concerning using the MFA when you have a large purchase like a fire truck, that you don't go to the MFA to borrow the money and use their rate option instead of paying cash for it. And the only time I hear a discussion from council is who's going to attend the MFA at the UBCM, rather than asking your CFO to explain the different ways that you could take out a loan for $800,000 to pay for a fire truck instead of using cash. And what would that look like? And how would that affect the taxes? And I think it's a worthwhile discussion. And as I say, I've never encountered hearing anything like that. And I think it's a missed opportunity, not only for council, but for the public to know that these are available. And I've always been of the opinion that the way the MFA is set up is excellent for local government. And I see it's a lost opportunity when council doesn't even have a discussion with your CFO about using that. And, no, it was just a comment. And, on the garbage pickup, I only put my garbage out every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, so. But yet I pay the full amount, so, yeah. When there's just one person, you don't do it every week, yeah, so, just a comment. And that was it, I can.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, next finance meeting, we pick a date. I'm free next Tuesday. Is anybody else?
Sorry, that's a little tight for me to
That's a
come
little
back
tight?
with these options. That only gives me Monday.
Um,
Could we do Thursday again?
No,
not do Thursday.
can't do Thursday.
Wednesday?
I can't do Wednesday,
Okay, it would have to be the following week then.
okay?
But the 25th, 26th,
I met that's already on the 26th, but what about the 17th to the 21st?
no. I'm on,
The whole week?
probably. I'm leaving on the 13th. Or 25th.
I mean, I might be able to do next Wednesday in the evening, but I won't know till tomorrow. I might be able to do it tomorrow, I'm just not sure.
Well, let's get something that everybody can
Okay.
confirm on. How's that? How about, March 25th? It's a Tuesday.
I can go for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll do it at the same time, 5 o'clock,
Do earlier.
4:30?
Give me 2 seconds here. March 24th is a Monday.
Yeah.
Can anybody do that? You can? Oh, you're on spring break. I can do earlier too.
I'm not working that week, so I can do it time.
I'm not either. Not the 26th and the 20, or except for the 26th and 27th, I'm at SORD. But we could do earlier, like we could do maybe, on a Monday or Tuesday, maybe do a 3 o'clock. What would that look like?
I don't know if I can get away at 3.
No, I'm working.
You're working?
I can guarantee I'm working.
Thank you.
So I'm just,
Thank you, Joni, or Ms. Laverne. I appreciate that.
sorry. So are you?
Okay, Monday or Tuesday?
It is fine with me.
Sure.
Could a Monday be? Okay. Can we confirm for March 24th, Monday at 3 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
We have to. Because if Councilor Reed doesn't, we don't have a meeting.
I guarantee.
Okay, well, it's a little bit away, so. Okay,
To me.
do we have anything further to discuss?
The only thing would be if council had any questions on projects or anything like that, we're happy to answer those tonight. Or we can save that. It's entirely up to council.
Can we save that and go through the projects, or do you guys want to do that tonight? 6:30.
6:30.
Okay, do you want to go through projects?
Maybe a major one or two, get through some of it.
Okay.
I know you guys up
Could
to.
I suggest a 5-minute break?
Absolutely. Let's
Yes.
take a 5-minute recess.
And figure that sign some of the projects.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a cheater, I wouldn't get to see the canal, or it's all leads to.